The studio lights were still dim as dawn broke over Manhattan, casting a pale glow through the tall windows of the Good Morning America set. Inside, the atmosphere was alive with quiet urgency. Assistants darted across the polished floor, cables trailing behind them. Before we begin, tell us where are you watching from, also subscribe. Hair and makeup teams worked swiftly and silently. Coffee machines hissed in the background, their aroma mingling with the light hum of nervous energy. It was another routine day for live television, at least on the surface, but today wasn't quite routine. In the green room, Michael Strahan sat with his notes, his brow slightly furrowed in concentration. His reputation preceded him, a pro's pro. He had a gift for navigating the trickiest interviews with disarming charm and thoughtful timing. Politicians, athletes, actors, even royalty, he'd interviewed them all, and yet even he could sense that this morning's guest brought with her a certain charge. Meghan Markle, actress turned duchess turned cultural flashpoint. She had returned to the public eye once more, this time to promote a new documentary focused on wellness and mental health. On paper, it was a light, positive segment, but producers weren't naive. Meghan's name alone could send the internet into a frenzy. Every word she spoke would be analyzed, praised, criticized, memed, and reposted within minutes. And everyone, from the camera operators to the executive producer upstairs, knew it. She arrived early, just after 7:30 a.m., stepping into the studio with a presence that turned heads. Meghan was dressed in a soft ivory pantsuit tailored to perfection. It walked the fine line between Hollywood elegance and royal sophistication. She moved with grace, greeted everyone warmly, and complimented the floral arrangements on the set with practiced charm. A small laugh here, a sincere thank you there. She was polished, radiant, unflappable. Yet for those paying close attention, there was something else. A flicker beneath the surface. Her smile reached her eyes, but only just. Her posture was perfect, but perhaps a bit too still. It was as though she were bracing for something. Backstage, a junior producer whispered into her headset, "Red light in 5. Everyone ready?" In the control room, monitors came to life and countdowns began. The broadcast was seconds from going live. At precisely 8:17 a.m., the red light above camera 3 blinked on. Michael turned to face the camera, his signature grin lighting up the screen. "Good morning, America," he said smoothly, his voice cutting through the buzz of the studio. "We have a very special guest with us today. Meghan Markle joins us to discuss her new documentary, her work in the mental wellness space, and what life looks like beyond the spotlight. Meghan, welcome back to the show." "Thank you, Michael," she replied, her voice calm and even. "It's always a pleasure to be here." For the first several minutes, everything unfolded like clockwork. Meghan spoke about her latest philanthropic project with polished clarity, using language that resonated: healing, mindfulness, safe spaces, community upliftment. Michael nodded along, steering the conversation like a seasoned conductor guiding a symphony. The segment so far was textbook, harmless, controlled. But Michael had done this long enough to know when to pivot and when to press. He glanced down at his note cards, then back up at Meghan. "So, Meghan," he began gently, with a tone that suggested curiosity more than confrontation, "you've worn many hats over the years: actress, humanitarian, royal family member. Looking back at your acting career, do you feel it helped prepare you for the public scrutiny that followed?" There was the slightest pause, barely noticeable, but something shifted in Meghan's expression, a subtle narrowing of the eyes. Her smile held, but her gaze sharpened. "Well," she said slowly, "I think it's a bit limiting to reduce everything I've done to my time as an actress. There's so much more to who I am now." Michael nodded, not missing a beat. "Of course. Though I'd imagine those early roles, that visibility, shaped how the public sees you, even now." A short, clipped laugh escaped her lips. "Perception is a funny thing," she said. "People often believe whatever narrative they're given, especially when it comes from the media." The temperature in the control room dropped. A producer muttered under her breath, "Okay, here we go." Michael stayed calm. This wasn't his first time walking a tightrope. "That's fair," he replied, "but I'd argue that interviews like this give you the chance to share your truth directly, unfiltered." For the first time, Meghan's smile faltered. Not much, just enough for viewers to sense a shift. "I suppose that depends on the questions being asked," she said, her voice still composed but edged with something colder. A beat of silence passed, not long, just long enough for millions watching at home to lean in. Michael flipped to the next card, a deeper question now, one he'd rehearsed, but wasn't sure how she'd take. "There's been a lot of discussion about your relationship with the press," he began. "Some say the media played a significant role in the distance that formed between you and the royal family. Looking back now, would you say that's accurate?" And just like that, the atmosphere fractured. Meghan's smile vanished. She sat back in her chair, crossing one leg over the other deliberately, a calculated gesture of control. Her voice, when it came, was cool and clipped. "That's an oversimplification," she said. "I walked away because I wanted peace. I wanted my children to grow up in an environment where their mother wasn't dissected by strangers on national television." She let that hang in the air, her eyes locked on Michael. "Ironic, isn't it?" she added, her tone almost amused. "And yet, here I am, again." Michael raised an eyebrow, his expression neutral. "And yet you've remained quite visible. Documentaries, podcasts, interviews like this one. Some would say you left one spotlight just to step into another." The tension in the studio was now undeniable. Meghan's response came with an icy smirk. "Are you suggesting that choosing to tell my story, on my terms, is the same thing as being hounded by tabloids?" Michael didn't flinch. Not at all. Just noting that the transition wasn't exactly a retreat from public life. The segment was no longer a gentle morning chat. It had become something else, something sharper, more dangerous. Millions of viewers were now glued to their screens, and back in the control room, producers weren't sure whether they were witnessing a PR masterclass or a slow-motion disaster. Whatever this was, it was no longer routine television. It was a moment that would be replayed endlessly, and it had only just begun. By the 10-minute mark, the interview had drifted far from its scripted trajectory. What was supposed to be a warm, uplifting morning segment had begun to teeter on the edge of something more volatile, more human. The control room was a hive of whispered deliberations and silent panic. A producer leaned into her mic. "We staying with this, or do we cut to break?" No one answered immediately. The live feed had captivated the team just as much as it had captivated the millions watching at home. On camera, Meghan adjusted her posture again, the kind of movement that seemed insignificant to most, but which the producers recognized instantly as a recalibration. She was still composed, but her armor had a hairline fracture now. Michael had seen it before, how even the most media-trained guest could slip when pushed just enough. He weighed his next question carefully. "Do you feel," he asked, his voice level, "that the public still misunderstands your choices, your exit from royal life, your approach to privacy?" Meghan took a long breath. "The public isn't a single voice, Michael," she said. "Some people heard my story and understood it immediately. Others prefer the headlines." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words, calm and deliberate, struck deeper because of their restraint. "But let's talk about what we don't see," she continued, leaning slightly forward. "Let's talk about the private calls, the sleepless nights, the panic attacks that didn't make the final edit of any podcast. Everyone wants a soundbite, but the reality is never that tidy." Michael kept eye contact, letting the weight of her words hang. "That's fair," he said after a pause. "But when you step in front of cameras, when you sign those documentary deals, don't you think that invites scrutiny?" Meghan blinked once, slowly. "It invites curiosity," she replied. "Scrutiny is something else entirely. It's not about interest, it's about control, about narrative ownership. And frankly, most of the time, I'm not the one holding the pen." That landed hard. In the control room, someone exhaled sharply. "We've lost the fluff piece," a senior producer muttered. "This is a full-blown reckoning now." Still live, still rolling, the broadcast refused to look away. Michael decided to shift tactics, just slightly. "Let's step outside the media for a second," he said. "Tell me about the documentary, the core of it. What are you hoping people take away from it?" A glimmer of relief flickered in Meghan's eyes, as if he'd extended a rope to pull her back onto steadier ground. She took it, at least for a moment. "It's about restoration," she said. "Not just mine, anyone who's had their identity twisted, minimized, or weaponized. We speak to women rebuilding after trauma, young people grappling with anxiety, veterans, single mothers, people who've had to reclaim their sense of self." She paused. "There's a particular kind of resilience that comes from being misunderstood. It forces clarity." Michael nodded. "Do you think you're still in that process of reclaiming?" Meghan didn't answer right away. Her jaw tightened just slightly, another flicker of something guarded. "It's not linear," she said. Healing never is. You think you've turned a corner, and then one headline pulls you back 10 steps. But I've stopped waiting for permission to move forward. For the briefest moment, something raw cracked through her composure. Not tears, not anger. Something harder to name. A kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too many expectations for too long, but just as quickly, it was gone. Her smile returned, softer now, less practiced. Anyway, she said, folding her hands neatly in her lap, the work continues. Michael glanced at the producer's signal off camera, still rolling. He smiled. You've mentioned clarity. Do you ever feel, especially now, that you're finally being seen for who you are? The question hung there. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't a compliment either. It was the kind of question that didn't ask for spin. Meghan tilted her head slightly, thinking. I think I'm being seen more honestly, she said. That's not the same as approval or even understanding, but it's closer to truth than before. Michael leaned back slightly. And what does that truth look like now? Another pause, a longer one. Meghan studied him, perhaps trying to decide how much more of herself she was willing to give. Live, uncensored and irreversible. Then she said, it looks like ownership. It looks like standing in the middle of a storm and choosing not to run. It wasn't a soundbite. It was something heavier, and Michael knew it. Do you think, he asked slowly, you've become the storm? A flash in her eyes. Not anger exactly, but awareness. She smiled, just a hint of steel beneath it. Maybe, or maybe I just stopped pretending I was built for the calm. Boom! The control room erupted in muted gasps. On social media, the quote would be posted and reposted within minutes. TikToks would be made. Headlines would grab it, twist it, inflate it. I stopped pretending I was built for the calm. It was already history. Michael, to his credit, let the silence breathe. Backstage, the energy was buzzing now. Phones vibrated with texts from PR teams, rival networks, Twitter alerts, trending hashtags. A producer read aloud, she's #1 on X trending. No surprise. Hashtag #, built for the storm period. The interview had gone nuclear, and no one was ready to turn the cameras off. Because the truth was, something more than a media moment was unfolding. Something uncomfortably real. Meghan had stopped performing, and Michael had stopped trying to steer, and they were both standing in the center of it now, live, unfiltered, unrehearsed. By 8:29 a.m., the digital storm had begun. Tweets multiplied by the second. Instagram clips from viewers recording their TVs were already spreading with captions like, Meghan just dropped a truth bomb on live TV, and this isn't morning fluff anymore. This is real. The Good Morning America account itself had yet to post anything official. No one from the social team dared cut away from the unfolding scene. Backstage, the atmosphere had shifted from nervous anticipation to outright adrenaline. Every producer had a phone in hand, monitoring comments, texts from network executives, and messages from Meghan's PR rep, who had apparently gone radio silent. A junior staffer leaned into the control room. CNN just picked it up. They're calling it the most candid morning segment of the year. No one was surprised. On set, the energy between Meghan and Michael had morphed into something no scriptwriter could have crafted. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a meltdown. It was something far more rare. Two professionals circling the heart of something raw, unsanitized, and deeply uncomfortable. Michael's next words were measured. You mentioned reclaiming identity, but for many people, your public persona is still polarizing. Does that ever weigh on you? Meghan smiled, though there was no warmth in it. You mean, do I lie awake wondering if strangers approve of me? She let the question hang, but I'd be lying if I said it never stung. Especially in the beginning, I think the hardest part was realizing that no amount of grace could soften a narrative that people were invested in hating. Michael responded gently, that's heavy. She looked him square in the eye. So is pretending it didn't happen. In that moment, she wasn't speaking as a duchess or an actress. She was just a woman who'd been picked apart, pixel by pixel, headline by headline. The camera caught every micro expression, Meghan's jaw tightening, Michael's subtle inhale. The silence was doing as much work as the dialogue. Then Meghan pivoted unexpectedly. But I'm not here for pity, she said firmly. I'm not here to convince anyone to like me. I've moved past that. I'm here because I have something to say, and because for too long, too many people have spoken for me. The control room nearly exploded. Holy, did she just say? She's flipping the whole power dynamic. A supervising producer cut in. Keep cameras rolling. Let it breathe. Don't cut her off. Meghan continued. This interview was pitched as a conversation about healing, but I don't think people realize healing is messy. It's not linear, and it's not always palatable for morning television. Michael sat still, letting her words hang. So what is palatable? What do you think people want to hear from you? Another pause. Then a quiet laugh. Not bitter, just knowing. They want me to say I regret everything, that I miss the palace, that I'd go back if I could, that I've learned my lesson about speaking out. Her smile turned razor sharp, but I'm not going to say that, because none of it is true. The control room erupted again, half stunned, half thrilled. Outside the studio, opinion pieces were already being drafted. Newsrooms scrambled to transcribe quotes. Social media exploded into two camps: those who saw Meghan as a symbol of defiance and agency, and those who insisted she was stirring drama for attention. But inside the studio, none of that mattered yet. The moment wasn't finished. Michael leaned in. Let me ask you this, what would you say to the people who believe you've abandoned the idea of privacy by speaking publicly? Meghan didn't blink. Privacy isn't silence, it's choice. That single sentence hit like a hammer. She elaborated. The world seems to think that once you step into the spotlight, you forfeit all agency, that you owe constant access, constant vulnerability, but that's not privacy, that's possession. Michael nodded slowly. So what we're doing right now, this is on your terms? Exactly. He glanced toward the camera. And you're not afraid it'll be misinterpreted? She smiled again, but this time there was sadness behind it. Oh, I know it will be, but that's the cost. The truth rarely comes without one. The clock ticked past 8:35 a.m. The segment had blown far past its original time slot, but no one was cutting away. Ratings were spiking. Social media was a wildfire. Every major outlet had clipped the "privacy isn't silence" quote and was spinning it into a dozen different angles. Backstage, Meghan's team finally made contact. A message flashed on a producer's screen. No comment for press yet. Let it breathe. This may work in her favor. May. The word hung ominously in the producer's mind. Nothing about this moment was safe. Still, from a media standpoint, it was historic. One network executive texted, "Don't just archive this segment, secure it. This is going to be studied in journalism classes." Meghan, meanwhile, had gone quiet. She sat with her hands folded, her voice no longer carrying the performative lilt that often comes with PR tours. She wasn't smiling for the cameras. She wasn't promoting anything anymore. This wasn't about her documentary, it was about her. Strahan, for all his experience, recognized the transformation. What had started as a routine guest spot had become a kind of televised self-reclamation. Live in real time, with millions watching, Meghan had stopped playing the part everyone had assigned to her. And somewhere between question 3 and headline number 50, she had taken the interview for herself. If you like this video, then subscribe.